Stay away from women, not out of hatred, but out of clarity. You need time, space, and solitude to wake up from the trance, because everything you were taught about women was built on one lie. You need her to feel whole. That belief has destroyed more men than war or poverty ever could. From childhood, you were programmed to seek approval, attention, validation, from a woman's gaze, from her affection, from her voice. And in doing so, you disconnected from your own. You learned to silence your instincts to avoid upsetting her. You learned to soften your edge to appear safe. But the cost of that safety was your soul. The truth is, until a man reclaims his inner world, until he learns to live without depending on her affection, he will never lead in love. He will be led by it. That's not masculine. That's captivity dressed in comfort. You need to stay away from women long enough to hear your own mind again, because without that silence, you'll only hear her. Most men don't realize that being around women all the time doesn't sharpen you. It dulls you. It makes you reactive, overly emotional, constantly seeking feedback. You begin to bend your actions to avoid judgment. You start talking in a way that's softer, more digestible, more charming. But what's lost in all this polishing is the real you. The unfiltered, unapologetic, raw energy that women are actually drawn to. Not the performance, not the nice guy mask, but the man who doesn't care how his presence is received. That man can only be forged in the absence of feminine influence. You need to go dark for a while. You need to be alone, not because you hate women, but because you're learning to stop needing them. Only then can you return to the world of women with power, not with a craving for their affection, but with detachment from their approval. Staying away from women also protects your ambition. Every high-value man who has achieved something great has passed through a season where he wasn't chasing women. In fact, he had to leave them behind. Because women are emotional. They pull you into drama, distractions, attention games. One moment she adores you, the next she's testing you. And every test, every emotion, every passive-aggressive text drains your focus. It takes your mind off the mission. You're not built to chase both at once, purpose and women. One will always suffer. When you're trying to build something that lasts, be it a body, a business, a brand, you can't be texting women all day trying to decode what she meant by K. You can't be thinking about what you did wrong when she pulls away. Your energy is limited. Protect it. Guard it like your life depends on it, because it does. You have to understand, most modern women are not trained to love a man. They're trained to tame him. From the moment you start dating her, she begins reshaping you. Little comments, subtle disapprovals. Don't say that. Why are you so cold? You should be more open. These seem innocent, but they're not. They are micro emasculations. She wants you to be more like her, emotional, talkative, pliable. And the second you give in, you feel it. You become less decisive, less dominant, less you. Stay away from women who make you feel like your masculine nature is something to fix, that you must be more sensitive, more accommodating, more expressive. That's not partnership. That's castration with lipstick on it. And once you lose that edge, it's almost impossible to get it back unless you completely remove yourself and start over. Staying away from women is also about detoxing your mind from the illusion of love, because a lot of what you thought was love was actually need. You didn't love her, you loved how she made you feel. You didn't want her, you wanted to be chosen by her. The idea that you were finally enough, that validation is like a drug, and most men are addicts, addicted to her attention, her praise, her presence. And just like any addict, you can't see clearly while you're high. You justify her disrespect. You chase her after being ghosted. You compromise your standards just to keep her around. This is why withdrawal is so necessary. You need to detox. You need to go through the emotional shakes. You need to sit with that ache, not run from it, because on the other side of it is clarity. And only when you're clean can you love from strength, not from scarcity. There's something men only realize when they finally cut women out for a season, how quiet the world becomes. No drama, no passive-aggressive texts, no we need to talk, moments that lead to hours of mental gymnastics, just silence, peace, a strange, unfamiliar calm. At first, you'll hate it. Your nervous system, addicted to female energy, will scream for stimulation. You'll want to text her. You'll want to scroll, chase, flirt. But if you can hold the line, if you can resist the temptation, you'll notice your mind becoming sharper. You start waking up earlier, lifting heavier, thinking clearer. You rediscover your edge. And most importantly, you begin to realize that your best self doesn't need her. That's the first step toward mastery. When you no longer need the drug, you become immune to the dealer. And that's when you become dangerous in the best way. Most men don't understand how badly they've been domesticated. You think you're leading your life, but you're following her rules. You don't post that thing because she won't like it. You don't pursue that idea because she won't understand it. You don't wear that shirt, say that joke, or hang with those friends because she'll give you that look. That's not partnership, that's prison. A man who constantly adjusts himself to avoid emotional punishment is not in love, he's in submission. And when a man lives in submission to a woman's moods, he dies slowly. His fire dims, his spine softens, his voice weakens. You have to reclaim your wildness, and to do that, you must leave the cage. Even if the door is wide open, you won't walk out until you realize you've become addicted to your own captivity. Walk away, burn the fantasy, return to yourself. Let's be honest, most modern relationships are built on fear, not love. Fear of being alone, fear of being unloved, fear of not being chosen. So we settle, we lower our standards, we betray our intuition, we ignore red flags just to feel the temporary safety of our arms. But deep down, every man knows if he keeps ignoring that voice inside, he'll rot, he'll grow bitter, soft, resentful. This is why you have to stay away from women until your spine is straight, your voice is calm, and your soul is grounded in purpose. Because only then can you choose a woman without fear, without grasping, without needing her to complete you. That's what terrifies them the most. Not your anger, not your aggression, but your indifference, your ability to walk away, your refusal to beg. That's when the power shifts. That's when she respects you. And that's when love can finally begin from a place of strength. Women today are drawn to men who don't chase them, not because they enjoy the attention, but because it reflects value. When a man chases, it signals desperation. And desperation is the opposite of attraction. The moment she feels that your time, focus, and emotional well-being depend on her, the game is over. She will test you, push you, withdraw. Not because she hates you, but because she wants to feel your depth. Can he stand alone? Can he stay centered when I pull away? Can he maintain frame when I break down? Most men fail these tests because they've never spent time in solitude. They've never cultivated stillness. This is why staying away from women isn't punishment. It's preparation. It's where you learn to stop reacting and start observing. When she ghosts you, you don't spiral. When she tests you, you don't flinch. And when she comes back, you decide, not your need. Staying away from women teaches you to see clearly, not through the lens of lust, loneliness, or longing, but with sober vision. You stop falling for the fake smiles, the curated selfies, the I'm not like other girls scripts. You start seeing behavior, not words, patterns, not promises, and you realize how much you've overlooked in the past, how many lies you let slide, how many red flags you painted green, because you were starving. And when you're starving, even poison looks like food. That's why the fast is necessary. You have to starve your mind of feminine validation until you don't need it anymore. That's when the fog lifts. That's when the illusion dies, and what's left is truth. Sharp, cold, liberating. The truth that you are enough without her gaze, without her touch, without her approval. That's the man she'll chase. That's the man she can't break. When you're constantly around women, you lose track of your internal compass. You start making decisions based on how they'll perceive you. You hesitate, overthink, try to be palatable. You cut edges off your personality to appear more understanding. But here's the paradox. The more you seek their approval, the less they respect you. Because deep down, they crave a man who moves on instinct, not hesitation. A man who doesn't filter his soul for female comfort. This is the essence of polarity. Women are emotionally fluid, reactive, shifting like waves. You as a man must be the shore, steady, unmoving, reliable. But if you're constantly wrapped up in their moods, checking your behavior against their reactions, you become the wave too. You lose your gravity, you lose your center, and eventually you lose yourself. That's why the distance is required. to realign with the part of you that doesn't need anyone's permission to exist. The system conditions you to think love is earned through sacrifice, that the more you give, the more you're worthy. But here's the dark truth. Women don't fall for men who sacrifice themselves for them. They fall for the men who sacrifice their desire for validation. That's what triggers respect. Because every woman on a primal level wants a man she cannot control. A man who can give her the world, but chooses when and how to give it. That's what creates obsession. Not the man who texts good morning every day or plans 3 dates a week, but the man who makes her feel lucky to be in his presence. You can only become that man if you first walk away from the need to please, the need to impress, the need to be liked. Women respect power, and power doesn't beg. Power doesn't apologize for being unbothered. Power walks away and watches who follows. You won't become your highest self until you've let go of your lowest craving. And for most men, that craving is female attention. We mask it as love, as connection, as healthy communication. But it's really a fix, a way to avoid sitting in our own emptiness. You won't discover your purpose, build your empire, or unlock your deepest potential if you're constantly distracted by dopamine texts and feminine chaos. It's not their fault. They're doing what's natural to them. Testing, probing, stimulating emotion. But if you're still reactive, still emotionally invested in her every word or silence, you're not ready for greatness. You're still her puppet, and she knows it. That's why staying away from women isn't weakness. It's training. It's spiritual detox. It's what makes you anti-fragile. So when you re-enter the dating world, you no longer orbit her gravity. You bring your own. They say you can't love anyone until you love yourself. But let's go deeper. You can't even recognize real love until you've starved out the counterfeit. What most men think is love is actually addiction to validation, to lust, to the fantasy of being chosen. And women are masters of projecting what you want to see until they no longer feel the same. Then the mask drops. And if your self-worth was tied to her affection, you crumble. That's why you must be alone. You must go dark. You must learn to validate yourself with brutal honesty and unshakable discipline. No more performing, no more seeking, just stillness. From this stillness, you begin to spot manipulation before it begins. You begin to see what she really wants, not your love, but your attention, not your truth, but your compliance. When you stop offering either, you'll see who she really is and who you've become. The most terrifying man in the world is the one who walks away with peace, not rage, not pettiness, just calm, silent detachment. Because women know they can't touch him anymore. He's no longer trying to prove himself. He's no longer hoping she comes back. He's moved into a space of abundance, and in that space, he becomes magnetic. Not because he's trying to attract, but because he's no longer seeking. That kind of man is rare. Most men break when a woman pulls away. Most men beg, chase, cry, and lose their frame. But the man who smiles, breathes, and continues walking, he becomes unforgettable. Not because he needed her, but because he didn't. And that will echo in her mind forever. Not the texts you sent, not the flowers you bought, not the apologies you made, but the moment you chose yourself over her confusion. That's when the power shifted forever. You have to understand, there is no clarity around women, no linear path, no logical reward system. Women operate in emotion, and emotion thrives in contradiction. They'll praise you for being available, but desire you when you're absent. They'll beg for emotional openness, but dry up the moment you expose your heart. They don't want you to speak, they want you to feel and still say nothing. They want your masculine presence, not your words, and that's why you need space. Isolation sharpens instinct. When you take your energy off women and reinvest it into solitude, you stop talking and start observing. You stop explaining and start noticing. You learn to hear what isn't said, to see the tests coming before they even form. That's the gift of walking away, not as a punishment to her, but as a graduation for you. You stop asking, what does she want? And start asking, what does my life demand of me? There comes a moment in every man's life where he has to choose his mission or his addiction to her attention. You can't have both. One demands your time, discipline, and purpose. The other demands your emotional surrender. Most men choose the latter, even while pretending they're still focused. But their phones are filled with half-read texts, DM notifications, and fantasies of making her finally see his worth. He's addicted. And the truth is, she doesn't even need to respond. Just the possibility keeps him hooked. That's not love. That's enslavement. And the longer you feed that addiction, the more your purpose starves. Your body is alive, but your spirit is kneeling. Stay away from women until you're so full on your mission that even her silence feels insignificant. Then, and only then, are you ready to lead a relationship. Not be dragged by it. Don't confuse silence with loneliness. Silence is not the absence of love, it's the birthplace of it. Real love doesn't scream. Real love doesn't beg. It waits, it watches, it chooses, and most men have never tasted that kind of love because they've never stood still long enough to receive it. You're always moving, chasing, calling, fixing, planning, hoping, but a woman cannot truly attach to a man who has no stillness. She needs to feel your presence before she trusts it, and that presence is built in solitude, that unshakable groundedness that says, I'm not going anywhere, but I'm also not going to prove myself. Most men think silence is weakness, but in a woman's emotional world, silence is louder than dominance. It signals confidence, control, mystery, and mystery breeds obsession. Stay away from women until your silence speaks louder than any pickup line ever could. You don't need to hate women. You need to understand them, and to do that, you must first leave them, not in bitterness, but in clarity. As long as you're in their world, reacting to their energy, you can't fully see them. You're too close, too invested. But when you pull back, when you detach, you begin to notice things. How her love isn't unconditional, how her words don't match her behavior, how her attraction is based not on who you are, but how you make her feel. And then you realize, she was never the prize. The prize was your peace, your time, your focus. She was just a test. And you only pass it when you stop giving her everything for nothing. That's when you reclaim your power. And from that power, you no longer need her. You might choose her, but never again will you be chosen by default. Let the world mock you. Let them say you're bitter. Let them call you cold. Because the truth is, they don't understand the fire you walk through. They don't know how many nights you stayed up, wondering why she changed. They didn't see the confusion, the begging, the slow erosion of your soul. So yes, stay away from women. Stay away until your soul is yours again. Until you wake up with purpose, not panic. Until you build a life so strong that her absence feels like peace, not punishment. Let them call it loneliness. You'll call it clarity. Because the man who walks alone for a season becomes the man no one can walk over ever again. And when you return to the world, should you choose to, you won't return as a boy hoping to be loved. You'll return as a man who already is. She'll tell you she wants vulnerability. She'll say she desires communication, emotional honesty, openness, and you'll believe her because you're sincere. But the moment you hand her your soul, she'll flinch. Not because she's cruel, but because she didn't want truth. She wanted fantasy. She wanted the version of you that kept her intrigued, not the one that cried in her arms. This is the brutal truth most men learn too late. The masculine is only desirable when it's just out of reach. Women crave the emotional illusion, the possibility of closeness, not the reality of it. And that's why so many good men get destroyed. Because they give what she asks for, only to be met with distance, confusion, and disinterest. Stay away from women until you master emotional control. Until you can feel deeply, but show selectively, so she doesn't run from the very heart she once begged to see. Every man who's ever suffered in love was taught to chase peace through chaos. That if he just did more, talked more, showed up more, gave more, then maybe she'd come back to him. But that's the trap. That's the loop that breaks the masculine core. She doesn't respect more. She respects less. Less reaction, less proving, less effort. Because to her, effort equals desperation. And desperation equals unworthiness. It's sick, yes, but it's real. That's why you must train yourself in the cold art of holding back. Stay away from women until withholding becomes your default. Until you can sit across from beauty and feel nothing but calm. Until her tests don't provoke, her silence doesn't shake, and her love doesn't define you. Because when a woman senses that you no longer need her to feel whole, she either runs or falls to her knees. The modern world is obsessed with male submission. Every TV show, every song, every social media post tells you to open up, be soft, be in tune with your emotions. But where is the celebration of your strength, your discipline, your silence? It doesn't exist, because a man who is emotionally sovereign cannot be controlled, and control is the currency of female power today. If she can predict your reactions, she can provoke them. If she can see your fear, she can manipulate it. That's why Stoicism is not just a philosophy, it's survival. Stay away from women until your energy is so centered, so still, that not even her most chaotic mood swings can draw you out of alignment. That's when you become a man of value. Not because you seek validation, but because you've transcended the need for it. What does stay away really mean? It doesn't mean never date. It doesn't mean become a monk. It means retrain your emotional reflexes. It means stop rewarding beauty with attention. Stop seeking meaning in her moods. Stop interpreting her mixed signals like ancient scripture. You are not her project. You are not her savior. You are not her entertainment. You are a man, a builder, a creator. Stay away from women until your soul is so filled with purpose that you forget what it feels like to chase. That's when women start chasing you, not because of your looks, not because of your charm, but because your silence tells her one thing louder than any pickup line ever could. I'm not afraid to lose you. That's the line that burns into her subconscious. That's the moment she starts to respect you. In the end, staying away from women isn't about avoiding love. It's about returning to yourself. Because when you're always available, always chasing, always giving, there's no you left. You become an echo of her desires, a puppet for her emotions. And that's not love, that's slavery. So walk away, not out of spite, but out of strength. Build yourself in silence. Create something with your hands. Master something with your mind. Find peace in your own presence. And when the world asks why you're alone, smile. Because the man who walks alone with clarity is worth more than the man who walks with crowds and confusion. And when a woman finally enters that life you built, she won't be met with desperation. She'll be met with decisiveness. And that's what makes her stay. Not your love, not your words, but the man you became when you finally stayed away.